what am I going to talk about? It's all got very long, big words going on there, so hopefully I'm just going to get rid of that one very quickly. But this is all about access, and so my background, as I'll go through in a second, is that's where that sort of has gone in the last few years, and hopefully there'll be some things out of it. Now, it's interesting hearing the other speakers as well, because I think there's a lot of similarities and threads running through this. So, who am I? I said don't introduce me, because I want you to just say, who do you think I am? Some of you will have Googled me or read the blurb that came with the thing. A lot of you might not have done. I only actually know, apart from some of the guys from Bendrig, I only know 2 other people in this audience, which is quite unusual in the sector, because we've got a sort of, when these things happen, you tend to know folk. So it's really nice for me to be here, to actually be talking to a completely different crowd of people. So when you look at me, you make some assumptions. You can actually make some fairly sound judgments as well. And pretty much the first thing that you'll spot is that I'm white. Okay, can't really hide that one. That's pretty much a given. The next thing, if you were to look closely, you'd see I was wearing a wedding ring, so you'd be able to say that I was married. That'd be a pretty safe bet. Obviously, there could be other things going on. Who knows where that's come from and what the history behind that is. But a reasonable assumption. Now, we start to get into slightly dodgy territory pretty quickly after this, because we're going to make an assumption because it had doctor up there that I was educated. Okay, you may or may not have done some Googling around or LinkedIn or whatever and found out some more about that. We can make an assumption, or we can sort of go, yeah, okay, I think that person's male. Okay, again, we're starting to get into that sort of territory where we're not 100% sure about those things. I'm 56, right? Just put it out there. So that, by some measures, is what's called middle-aged, which when I was young, I never ever thought that that's something I would be standing up talking about. But anyway, there you go. So, but there's an assumption in there. If you are really good on accents, you'd work out that I was from North Yorkshire. And I'm middle class. That's my background comes from that. That's who I am. Now, those are things that you may assume. You may assume from some of those things that are going on above, but they'll create a picture. Now, I'm also various things, roles, whatever. In terms of my work, I'm self-employed now, but I've been a teacher, I've been a lecturer at times. If I've got a doctorate, does that make me an academic? Nick told me I was an academic. He was introducing me to someone else, and I'm like, I am not. So that's something that, again, people have their own perceptions of you. So all of those things together, though, they actually lead to the next question, which is, how will you judge me? Because you will have formed an impression of me from the moment I stood up in front of you, or from the moment you even saw that I was going to do it. Something, somewhere, you've gone, right, okay, however subconsciously, you've made some sort of assessment, and you've made some sort of judgment. It might be completely neutral, it might be so minor, it might be nothing. But you've made some sort of judgment straight away. And we do this. We do this instinctively, we do it all the time. And we do it in our work, we do it in our social lives, we make some sort of judgment straight away. And then everything either confirms or denies that as we go forwards. So that's me. Now, that is me, and the me is the me that I can talk about. So I've got my own lived experience. People in this room have got their lived experience. Everyone's is very different, as Jack was saying. We're all individuals. So how did I get here? Now, who is this me then that stands up? I've given you there's some visuals, some characteristics there, but there's also that professional bit. What about the rest of me? Well, the little kid down there with the funny hat on is me. I have no idea. I mean, apparently that's me, but I've got no recollection of it. I grew up not doing anything like this. My dad's in that kayak up on the left. He was paraplegic, still is actually. So this wasn't our life as a family. We didn't do this sort of thing. So I came to it much sort of like almost by accident. I went to see Chris Bonington, mountaineer, do a lecture in 1976 at the Darlington Civic Theatre about climbing Everest. And I thought, oh my goodness, I want to do that. That's me. Now, my 2 brothers had the same opportunities as me. They don't give 2 hoots about the outdoors, not at all, not slightest. So there's something, I'm wondering now whether there's something in here that makes you more disposed to this sort of thing. I don't know, it's just a thinking thing. But I'm married, there's me and my wife and my dog up on top of Place Fell last year. I became a teacher, I was going to be an engineer, and I hated it, horrible thing. It was all sums, couldn't do that. So I became a teacher and became an outdoor education teacher and ended up in the top right running outdoor education centres up in the Lake District. And then left and did a PhD, which we'll come to in a minute, and then became self-employed and then started being involved in the sort of development of outdoor learning, basically, which is brilliant. I love it. I absolutely love it. So how did the adventure things happen? We've already heard it from Belinda. D of E. D of E started me off because it was an opportunity put on by school, and there's something really key in all of this, for me to go out there and actually live this thing, this dream of being an adventurer, being an explorer. So off I went, and it was fantastic. I loved it. D of E had some other sections to it, I think, but it was like Belinda said, it's just expeditions. It was amazing. And so I could do this. So bronze, silver, gold, there's my tent on the right there. You can see the sort of state of it. It's not a particularly wonderful thing by today's standards. But that's the sort of thing that led me into this. Now, I actually went on to do, in the gold, I got a chance to do award scheme leadership, so I helped the bronze people do it. So I can see the genesis of all of this stuff about me starting this thing happened then. Now, I was also lucky enough, as many other people you talk to, I went on a 3-week out-of-bound course when I was in the 6th form at school. And this was at Ullswater, and we had to raise the money. 3-week course then cost about £450 or £380 or something. It was a heck of a lot then. Now it's obviously significantly more, but we still had to do the same thing. You raised the money, it was all part of this thing. But that for me was one of those transformative experiences. It was just, I was just there doing it. And I was doing it with all sorts of people from all sorts of other walks of life, which was brilliant for me from rural North Yorkshire. So that was really cool, and that was an instrumental part. Now, what I then did was I had a year off, and I almost didn't get out of 6th form. It was like, this is not going to work for me. And it's like, right, well, I can do this if we then go and do something else. So I was lucky enough to work on a container ship to then get around the world. I went to New Zealand, went to Australia, worked on a sheep farm in New Zealand, travelled around Australia, hitchhiked down the east coast. This is 18-year-old me hitchhiking down the east coast of Australia. It was transformative. So the adventures were happening, and these adventures were things that there was no point did I think I can't do that. At no point was there a thing that said, this is something that you are not going to be able to do, Mr. Harvey. It was something that I just thought, yeah, I'm going to do it. Now, looking back, I'm aware that there's a lot of privilege lurking in there. There wasn't the sort of the privilege of lots of money or anything, but there was a privilege of just feeling that you could do it. And that's something that is quite powerful. And so these sort of things then led me on to eventually becoming this teacher and getting married. I met my wife at the outdoor centre I was working at. We went to Nepal for our honeymoon, did the Annapurna circuit. So these were things that were just like, this is us, and it was part of me, who I am. When we have carried on forwards, I tried to encourage my wife to get into sea kayaking, and it didn't work because she gets motion sickness. So that was a short-lived experiment. Very exciting one, but very short-lived. But we could go open canoeing. So we've ended up doing some massive expeditions and things, which has been amazing. And we still are very keen to go and do that sort of thing. When we were at the Conway Centre on Anglesey, where I worked, my qualifications, another privilege, enabled me to go to Ghana with the army, and I led an expedition in Ghana down the Volta River system, 31-day canoe trip. Amazing opportunity, and the things that had come from these things that I'd been able to accrue as I've gone through my life. So all of these things become keys to doors, and they're the things that have helped me to actually get to where I want to be. Now, what I then did was I left eventually. Work was starting to go more and more away from what I wanted to do, which was to have a direct impact on people I was working with. So I was fortunate enough to be able to do a PhD at the University of Cumbria up the road, and it was sponsored by the IOL, Institute for Outdoor Learning. Is anyone a member of the IOL? Put your hand up if you're a member of the IOL. Interesting, brilliant, thank you. It was looking at progression, and it was also looking at how you could increase the opportunities for people to access outdoor learning. And that was brilliant because the PhD was amazing. I was funded. I was able to just go and think about all these different things that I wanted to think about or explore. And it was this privilege, and it was just amazing. What a chance. So I did that, and that's led me to where I am now. Now, one of the things that I started looking at was how do people get access to things. Now, I was thinking about the outdoors in general. So the outdoors being this sort of place where you could then do all these wonderful things. And what started to become clear was that there's some key things underpin all this. So I was starting to look at access. So this is all my stuff became based on some theory called access theory. And it was like a theoretical frame that we put underneath it. And then I started looking at things. So I was involved with the west coast of Cumbria doing this. And it coincided with the establishment of what's called the Outdoor Partnership, which is a project that started in Wales, has now spread across parts of England and Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. Claire's sitting in the audience, who's the development officer, there she goes, for the thing, and I'm now chair of the stakeholder group on the West Coast. And its goal is to encourage participation in the outdoors. So what I started looking at was actually, you have these opportunities, and Zena talked about it, about I've put this thing on, and hello everybody, you can all come to it, and nobody comes. And this happens quite a lot. We have these opportunities, but we don't have the means where sometimes people can actually get from where they are to making the most of the opportunity. So there's different aspects that go into affect this. So there's gaining access, there's maintaining access, and all of those are linked to how it's controlled, how access is controlled. And so where this goes is that this underpins how we get to what we're doing. So bear with me as I go through this. So in terms of the gaining access, I ended up sort of looking at three different groups of people. There's participants, people who go out there and want to do it and get involved. There's the enablers. They're the people who actually, as people who say, like, it might be a teacher or youth worker or something, the people who say, right, come on, we're going to take you all as a group, or we're going to do something. We're going to help you go and do this. And they're not the people that it's primarily aimed at, but they're the people that actually make it happen. And then there's a third bunch, and these are the controllers. And these could be called gatekeepers, but these are people who are somewhere in the distance. They may not even know that they have this impact or this potential impact, but they, by what they do and the things that they sort of operate in, these sort of things they engage with, these are the things that actually enable the enablers to actually take the participants. So they're a really important group of people. Now, they all operate within this bunch of access mechanisms. I'll come to them in a minute. So these are all the different factors that work. And they operate within what the law is, what the customs are, what the convention is. Now, again, what Zee was saying about the fact that the culture within your community was such that people didn't feel that they could put their names forward because that wasn't what they did. The custom and convention said, we don't do this, we do something else. This is true whether you're in that community or whether you are in a community in a working class, post-industrial, ex-coal mine landscape on the west coast of Cumbria. It's a different sort of place. It's a similar thing in that it's got a culture that says that's for other people. So there is some customs and conventions, but there are also laws, and laws can be enabling or they can be restrictive. Now, these mechanisms, this is the sort of things. Now, there's actually a number of them, like which I've sort of lumped together here. But capital is access generally to money, but it could be social capital. So the ability you have to cross boundaries and to make relationships and things is really important as an individual. People who've got high levels of social capital tend to be more successful. Capital is money as well, though, and money comes into this a lot. We've just been talking about the three most important things in actually a lot of stuff is money, and money. And getting funding for things can be really significant in terms of success or not. Now, technology, access to technology, it's not just your phone. A road is technology, a car park is technology. If we talk to Nick about access and technology and a style, so you can put in a style because we've got access, but actually when you get there and you're faced in a wheelchair, what you actually need is a gate. So technology is a picnic bench as well as, that's got a hole cut in it, as well as something more technical. So how people get there, transport systems, that's all fits under technology. So where should we go next? Knowledge. If you don't know what's there and you don't know how to do it and you can't access it for all that reason, knowledge plays a massive part. Being educated is a key. And being educated in different things. So for a qualification, doing a mountain leader course gives you ability to actually take people out and do something. It gives you a key to a door in employment. Being able to go out and navigate and use a map or use your phone properly is a key to being independent in the outdoors. Relationships and social identity, these are critical things. These are part of that social capital thing. So the relationships that people are able to have or do have with people in authority, with people who hold the means for helping people to actually access things, that's really important. And then the social identity. We know a lot about people with protected characteristics and how that affects people's access to the outdoors. It affects people in terms of recreation, it affects people in terms of employment, and it affects people through education. So we have got some major issues we know about, but all of these things actually combine, and the phrase is obviously is intersectionality. These things affect whether or not we can gain access to those opportunities. So that's all good then, we know about that. So what? So within each of these things, I want you just to take a couple of seconds just to look at each of these as we go, because I'm going to lead this down to an exercise at the end, a little bit of a thinky thing. So capital, transport, it's like entry fees. Can you afford the entrance fee? Can you afford a car park? Equipment itself, anything that helps you to actually get to this is going to have an impact. Knowledge, awareness. Awareness is massive. If you don't know what's there in the first place, how can you know whether or not you want to even try to get there? How to access the opportunity. Qualifications is a really significant piece in terms of employment in the outdoor sector, especially now. In the last 20 years, qualifications have become really significant. So how you get at those, how to make that jump is really important. Technology, talked about that, infrastructure, facilities, equipment. Social identity, where you fit into the world, the values that you hold. Communities and groups, who you're part of, what they think. Some groups have got access to things that other groups don't. And then that whole beliefs bit at the thing, what do you think it's all for? So the negotiate relationships bit is bigger and hidden because we actually use these things an awful lot. We tend to use our networks a lot to access things. This is a network here, and this network is going to have a ripple effect. It does have a ripple effect already. The communities that we're in, who leads those communities and what they think often has significant impact on the other people that are there within it. Who else is going with you? Who's on this journey? I'm on a journey. I don't know who else is on it with me. My wife is on the journey. She knows where I'm at on it. She's in a different place, usually much further on. But yeah. So when we talked about these gatekeepers, and I think come back to these because these are really important. Landowners, you know, the river. Who owns a river? In England, it's owned by the people who own the land either side of the riverbank. Those people have an impact in terms of whether they allow access to a river. In Scotland, it's different, so the law comes into it. Funders have a big impact. We're talking about with money, community, family. These are people who may be tourism officers or someone who can put money in out of a council into something. So these people have a role without necessarily realising it. So if we're looking at influencing people, this is kind of where we want to go. And in terms of what they actually do, we've got these, the way that they provide the opportunities, the laws that are passed, everything where we have a chance to consult or to be involved, then we should be, because we should be driving change for access through all of these people, through challenging it, through making it very clear about what impact it has. The Forestry Commission in Ennerdale, over on the west coast of Cumbria, have put car park meters in. Suddenly, taking a group for a walk, for a mental health walk, in Ennerdale, in the Forestry Commission car park, now costs money. That's now restricting that as an opportunity. That seems wrong to me. So there's things that we can do to challenge this, but we need a collective voice to do that. Things about controlling access, gaining access, maintaining it. We're going to talk more about this later on, but like what happens afterwards? Yeah, what happens when the money runs out? How do you keep this going? How do you share the knowledge? Yeah, how do you help participants gain knowledge and confidence? And then how can, I think this bit really important here, this bit about people working together, okay? Now, that bit, those are questions to ask because we have not got those well sorted. This is basically where it came to. My PhD boiled down to these next couple of slides, which is one of the things I think that we do as a sector is that we are very good at saying what we think the benefits are and how everyone can benefit. Now, I think that, and I think the Z thing about how people are in it, when you talk about, I'm just going to point to Z here, like about why you went up a hill, It wasn't because of the nature connection piece, was it? It was because of the challenge. So people have different reasons for being outside. People go for it for all sorts of things. It might be a health reason, it might be a nature connection reason, it might be a physical challenge, it might be something, it could be anything. So where I came to was that actually what we're trying to do is to develop people's capacity to make a choice. And that choice is autonomy. It's about, I've gone there, I don't like it. But if people don't have that choice, then that's the bit that for me isn't fair. And so we start down this end with helping people to navigate the structures that enable access. There's lots of support. We then end up with a sort of, or move to a state where we're signposting to people, hey, you could go and do this, you know. As they do that, they increase their own knowledge and skills, their social capital, their capital to enable them to access things. And then gradually they become able to choose to opt in to the outdoors. And this is what I think is really important. It's about choice. It's about being able to access this. So that's the model. Now, to get there, this is where, now pardon me, this is a complex, that's life, okay? That is what we operate in. That is an ecosystem of life. We have families, adults, clubs, institutes, school, all sorts of things going on, and we interact with all these things, higgledy-piggledy, willy-nilly, all the time. Around the outside, there's everything else. Policy, government, councils, the health agenda, the climate agenda, employment, you name it. It's all there, and we're all doing this all the time, okay? Now, if we think about this in terms of outdoor learning or adventure or any of this sort of related stuff, then actually, if we want to encourage more to get to that thing and more people out there doing stuff in an equitable way, then actually, one of the things I think that makes a difference is some sort of hub. Now, up in the top left, you'll see the Outdoor Partnership badge there, because that's what the Outdoor Partnership does. It brings people together. Zay talked about collaboration and partnerships and working together, and Jack thought about it as well. This is the same thread running through this. We need to be collaborative to think, how can we enable this to happen? This isn't going to happen by itself. And the more people think, I'm just going to do my little bit, then the less likely that is. So the Outdoor Partnership serves as a hub, and hubs can be in all sorts of different ways. It's not necessarily a thing, but it's about connecting and bringing people together, funding, opportunities, and then the communities themselves. One of the things that we need to remember is that we can't empower people. That's a power structure straight away. People become empowered. They come up because they actually understand how they can do these things and they develop the skills. Our job, or my way I see it, my role, is to actually enable the conditions that enable that to happen. And that's what I think that we can do, and how that's when we're then going to increase the access that we all hopefully are aiming for. Finish off with a few slides. Ecosystems give you a framework to work on, and in an ecosystem there are eco-zones. So the example I'm going to use here is a river and a river bank, okay? Two different eco-zones. Now, there's our goal, our happy kayaker, yeah? Yeehaw! Okay. Now, for some people, getting on can be really, really difficult. Treat this as an analogy, okay? But getting in off a flight of steps and down a steep bank, there's a chance that there's going to be some wet straight away. You're going to fall in, right? It's going to happen. Jack's nodding. This is something, so that's not ideal. Now, for some people, it can feel like that, yeah? That is how some people feel when they get in a kayak for the first time. Now, that's obviously complete lunacy, but there's something going on there that actually that person has chosen that, yeah? Not me, but it's like, just went and snaffled these straight off the internet. Now, wouldn't it be nice if actually we think about that transition? So if we were to get in off a beach and we make that transition smoother, we make that getting from A to B, from the opportunity to the group, or the group getting from where they are, the person getting from where they are to that opportunity, easier. Now, you can make it even easier. You can make, I've never seen this in this country, Nick, I don't know if you've got one of these, but so here's a sort of launch ramp for a kayak on the deep water. It's like, whoa, this is amazing. There's another different one. These are all pictures from the States, but I'm just like, oh, there's an opportunity here, you know. And then something like that, you know, a frame. So what we're doing here is we're finding ways to bridge that gap between the bank and the river. And that is where I think where the opportunity lies. It's concentrating on that ecotone, concentrating on that place between where people are at and where they could be. And that's where I think the challenge lies. Last little exercise then. This is, you might have seen this, a diversity map, diversity jigsaw. Okay, this is an example of one. But this is like, go straight back to what Jack was saying, everyone's an individual and everybody is made up of all of these things. And everybody in this room has got a different jigsaw. Mine is different to every single person's in here. But those things are what have led you to here. In different ways, different pathways, different journeys, okay? So I'm going to leave you with a reflection I'd like you to make, okay? And the reflection is, I'd like you to consider your last personal adventure, okay? Your last personal adventure where you were out, and it doesn't matter how big, small, or whatever. I want you to consider the things that were in that jigsaw, in the frame of all those access things that I was talking about. What are the things that you have had that's contributed to that, that's enabled you to be there? Because we have to start with our own journey. We have to be sure of what we're doing ourselves. So we've come back to this same thing. It's about journeys. We've all talked about journeys. And this journey is something that I'm on. I'm qualified to talk about my own journey. I'm not qualified to talk about anybody else's. But what I hope that this is going to do is actually give an idea of the baseline that everybody experiences before we even get to some of the bigger challenges like being disabled. So understanding all of this, for me, is the way forward. And that is me. Thank you.